Welcome to Second Breakfast. Hey, does this look better like this? Or like this? We'll see what happens when I leave this on. All right, welcome. Hey, we're going to be talking about what's going on up here in this thumbnail. Liberals violated the Bank of Canada Act, which is not new. This is something that was brought up a year ago, coming in May. But of course gets no traction because, as you know, the mainstream media is controlled by the Liberals. And of course, if you have been following what's been happening over the last 24 hours, Liberals had a bit of a convention or something. And, there's a lot of bad stuff happening now as a result. All kinds of, typical Liberal associations with those kind of people being exposed once again, and we'll cover all that when we come back. But first, a message from our sponsor. Imagine having a supernatural power on your side to help you through each day. This episode of Second Breakfast is brought to you by your higher power. That's right, your higher power is free and ready to tap into at any time. The only cost, of course, will be your honesty. I use my higher power every day to pray for others and to ask for help. But most of all, I use my higher power to give thanks. Gratitude is the way to get through each day. You will be amazed at the changes in your life if you allow yourself this eternal free service. Please come back and join us after the intro. All right, we have a lot to cover today, and it's going to be a bit of a long show, so I better get to it. Right, let's get past this stuff. First of all, welcome to Second Breakfast, a stream of consciousness that fills part of the gap between the no answer period, which should be starting again on Monday, where we covered the lower house, during question period, where we keep score. Exactly. And it's been an amazing piece of legislation to go through day after day and put together a lot of videos, which are available, of course, on this website right here, that can be used, especially when you have discussions with people on the far left side who say, no, what you're saying is wrong, it's evil, it's a lie, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? We have playlists, and you can go down through here and go into our Canada's Parliament playlist. It's also available on the Rumble site. Same playlist, same videos. And within there, you have a bunch of videos that basically just uses politicians' own words against them, because it's straight from the lower house. So when they say, no, that never happened, well, actually, it happens every day, but you guys aren't paying attention because you're being fed a bunch of lies by the mainstream media. And of course, every Friday, which was yesterday, we do Blazing Kefir Fridays at 9 a.m. instead of this. So we're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. Please give us a like, share, thumbs up, subscribe, all that jazz. We are so close to being monetized on YouTube, so please give us a subscribe. And as well, comments drive the algorithm. So if you're watching this on repeat, please leave a comment. And of course, my comments usually drive down the algorithm. So all your comments help. I hope you're already having a wonderful morning and are ready to face the day with love and hope of your fellow man. I'm looking outside. It's a beautiful sunny day, which means I need to get outside today and do some work. I would love to start into the garden, prepare for our other channel as spring is here. Except today I have another task to do, which is install some new equipment so that all the choppiness that I keep having on this channel will hopefully finally go away with this new equipment after today. All right, let's get on with the show. First of all, if you laugh, you are a bad person.
First ever bus driver.
Sorry about that.
Timmy, you just got hired on as Ridgemark Middle School's first ever bus driver with Down syndrome. How does it feel?
It feels really good. I like driving. Kids can be safe with me. I practice a lot. And it's a really big bus.
It sure is. Congratulations.
Good evening. I'm standing outside Ridgemark Middle School where, yes, that is a full-size school bus jammed into the second story of the building behind me. Authorities say the driver, 28-year-old Timmy Reynolds, somehow managed to get the bus up an embankment and through a classroom.
Timmy, you just got hired on as Ridgemark Middle School's first.
So, did you laugh? You're not necessarily a bad person. All right. Here's another good one to get your blood going for today.
Attention, please, attention. If you're a crazy, liberal, ugly woman, otherwise known as Crazy Karens, please go back home and annoy your husbands instead of our beautiful ICE officers. Although when you think about it, you probably don't have a husband because you're fat and ugly and annoying, and nobody will ever marry you. I know you're all wearing pajamas, but this would be a nice moment to maybe start with a little jog around the block so you can lose some of that weight and maybe think about some of those life decisions where everything went wrong. Anyway, if you keep fucking around with that guy, you're going to get pepper sprayed, bitch. So please just, well, there you go, bitch. You kept fucking around, and now you found out. Believe me.
Just a few funny videos to get our day started. Now, a not so funny post right here. Keir Starmer's Ukraine rent boy trial is 17 days and not a single mainstream media outlet has said a word. And it's true. I was like, what the hell is this story about? I haven't heard anything about this. And of course, you know, Keir Starmer he's not been having a good time because he's a doofus. He's a far lefty who's got a lot of bad things happening in his life. And of course, they're all coming out. And one of them is apparently this issue happening here. What are they talking about? Regarding this rent boy issue of his? Well, of course, I was thinking down the worst possible path, especially all these weird things they've been saying about his sexual predilections, but apparently it has nothing to do with that. Police make a fifth arrest over arson attacks on properties linked to the Prime Minister of Britain. And apparently the story is that, well, people were being hired to set fires to properties he was linked with. No idea what it's about, whether he's involved or whether he's a victim, but there it is. But why is the mainstream media not covering it? Why? It's very interesting that the mainstream media is not covering it. Now, typically, the mainstream media will never cover anything that puts their political masters in a bad light. Right? So I would say that there's probably some involvement that they don't want the public to know about. Now, meanwhile, of course, this is about the UK. This is not about Canada. And I usually do this because what happens in the UK is coming to Canada. Because the same bloody policies that they've been doing there are the same bloody policies that the Liberals and Carnage have been doing here in Canada. Here we have Basil the Great posting, this is a political candidate for election in Britain. No, I am not joking. We are colonized. Well, he doesn't look very British. Well, let's see what happens.
When you have a strong father, a strong shade upon you, then nothing can stop you from winning. So we're pleased Mr. Khan Senior is here. He's our elder. We all look up to him. He's made changes in Rochdale, and his son is about to bring a big change in Central on the 7th.
Well, it's obvious there's been some big changes in Rochdale, and I bet you none of them hang out at the local pub to have some bangers and mash. And why is there a Ramadan question on the UK citizenship test, asks and wokeness? Well, when you see what happened in the prior post there of who they're running for council, this cleric, very British-looking cleric, and no wonder they're asking these hush questions that seem to have nothing to do with British culture as of 20 years ago. But now, having been invaded by Islam, I guess it is now British culture, which means your British culture is probably almost dead now, because Islam never allows for any other culture to thrive within Islam, because Islam is all-encompassing, from cradle to the grave. It has no room for any other ideologies. In fact, it disparages them and uses violence against them. And that is a fact, Jack. Here we have breaking. Sailors tracking Russian warships through the channel are going on strike next week because they aren't paid enough. Brilliant. Sailors who track Russian warship to go on strike. Royal Fleet Auxiliary Staff, the civilian support wing of Royal Navy, plan walkout in long-running dispute over pay. Yes, indeed. Now, here in Canada, we don't have, so far as I know, civilians operating on our warships. Not yet, I suppose. Then again, we don't have enough sailors to operate our warships because recruiting is in the toilet now. And of course, I don't even know what the hell they're called anymore. We used to have seamen, master seamen, but I don't know, somebody found it offensive. Now it's sailor, I think, master sailor. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but as soon as the Liberals got involved, they started destroying culture, destroying the warrior culture, destroying tradition within the Canadian Armed Forces. So I'm sure it's the same over in the UK, because we seem to follow everything that they do. Oh, this is an empty post. Sorry about that. There we go. Any disrespect of our prophet will not be tolerated. Posts Islam invasion. In Glasgow, Scotland, they are vouching to implement Sharia law to enforce respect for Muhammad and the Quran. When they are the majority, we will lose all our freedoms, he posts. Well, it seems to be a running theme here today. What was happening over on the island that gave birth to this great nation of Canada.
Place all over the world that there can be no disrespect to our beloved Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And lastly, I want to say, as Brother Imam Qasim has said, that we love our beloved Prophet.
I don't know, it's not a Scottish accent I'm familiar with. And I spent my first 5.5 years in a Highland regiment, the Lanark and the Renfrew Scottish Regiment. That's right, our kilts were black watch tartan, and we were an infantry unit. And during World War II, that infantry unit was actually turned into an air defense unit for 5 years. But then we came back to becoming an infantry unit after that. Long tradition, long history. At this point, I figure, was coming up to 150 years, should be, for that regiment. Anyway, just saying, I do have a link to Scotland in my 5.5 years of operating in a Scottish infantry unit. They would wake us up with the bagpipes during recruit training, and that was quite often. We wore kilt and cutaway as part of our dress uniform. I understand. There's a culture there. There was a close culture there, and I guess that's gonna disappear. Indeed. Now, shocking, at Essex Weatherfield base, military veterans proudly raise the English flag on British soil. You won't believe what happens next.
Something about a flag? Put a flag up?
We put an English flag up in
English
England.
or
They're flying up the road. Yeah. They're literally flying up the road, bud.
Yeah. This would be for the thumbnail. Yeah.
Wow, look, they got a whole car full. Did it.
Yeah, we've been on antisocial behaviour. Okay. We walked on. Gives us the power to ask for your name and your address. Yeah, okay. Okay, fair play. If that is not provided, that becomes an arrestable offence. Oh, okay. Flag's been raised on Weather.
So if you don't think it can happen here in Canada, you're fooling yourself, because this is the same ideology that the Liberals have, that they have instituted right there in the UK. Or sorry, over there. Sorry, my screen's over there that you're seeing on the screen there. Anyway, a carload of papas show up because might be a hate crime. Oh my goodness, a hate crime! And then you saw how they treated him. It's a hate incident. Oh, it's very, very, very serious, right? They can't deal with the crime on our streets. They can't seem to stop the rapes that are happening in their own society. But, they'll go after a military person raising a British flag on British soil is a hate incident. Right? Now, remember during the COVIDity stupidity when the freedom protest was waving Canada flags and everybody was like, down with freedom, down with Canada. Well, actually, no, they were identifying the Canadian flag with bad stuff because they wanted freedom. Right? They wanted the government to leave them alone and stop trying to kill them with a fraudulent injection. But the old bozos, all of a sudden, switched that around as soon as Mark Carney came in. He goes, oh, no, the Canadian flag is good. Until, of course, you start raising it and it upsets the local ideology. Right? Remember, this is the government that forced the Navy to raise a non-ensign, non-color on a warship. Made them raise a pride flag on a warship as to replace the standard. That's despicable, absolutely despicable, to force your warship to raise a flag that hasn't been sanctioned. Cass Blackburn writes, here we go, folks. New Brunswick's credit rating was downgraded from stable to negative. All it took was a single year of Liberal leadership. After 7 consecutive balanced budgets under PC Higgs, government Holt blew through the budget out of the water. No one should be surprised. Exactly. Same thing happened over in BC. They gave it over there to the far left retards, and they were given a surplus budget, and now, of course, that's all gone. On top of that, they won the election by promising to give $1,000 to every single voter. Yeah, we get a surplus they give us. You're all going to get $1,000. And then as soon as they got elected, it goes, oh, no, we can't really afford to give you $1,000. And then promptly started to raid the treasury, give it to their friends, increase a massive deficit that BC will probably never dig itself out of ever again. Very much like what's happening here in Canada, where we have accumulated so much debt that we are paying $10 million per hour just to keep the creditors at bay. But that figure is probably much higher because that comes from before when the budget was released. And as we know, they've already promised to spend over $100 billion. They're still spending more. There's no way that Canada will survive itself fiscally and not go into depression by the middle of the summer at the rate of spending. And of course, here we go. We see the credit downgrade starting right there because that side of the country is full of far left liberal elbozos. Now, meanwhile, Unfiltered with Kel says a $216 fine and banned until 2031. How is this still happening? Indeed. Now, what is this about? This is about fraud once again. Why is this fraud happening? Because the Liberals have allowed so many people into the country unvetted that they don't care about our ethics and morals and laws. They're just here in it for themselves, not for Canada, because they were not vetted. Right? They were just allowed in. Oh, come on in. No problem. We have a Century Initiative to meet 100 million people in Canada by 2050. Come on in. If you work in Calgary, rental industry, you need to see this. Dr. Samit Gill's corporation was just slapped with one of the largest penalties we've seen. $216,000 in a 5-year ban from Canada's temporary foreign worker program. Oh, there we go. The TFWB once again. The violations: Code 8, breaking recruitment laws. Code 9, promising fair wages on paper but allegedly failing to pay them. Oh, that's not for me. I wonder who they took that example from. As a dental professional, I know the truth. We do not have a worker shortage in Calgary. We have thousands of qualified Canadians ready to work. So why was positive LMIA even approved for this? Indeed, why are the Liberals continuing to bring in massive amounts of temporary foreign workers when Canadians can't find jobs, especially our youth, which is driving them out of the country? and they're taking their wealth with them. Not necessarily the youth, these professionals here. Who's protecting our profession when business owners use loopholes to undercut local wages and bypass Canadian workers? Because that is the way the Liberals want it. They have created and seeded this chaos in Canada to their advantage and nothing else, especially not for Canadians. Meanwhile, here the National Post has reported once again, top government official says she was promoting diversity and inclusion when she broke the hiring rules. Yes, this deputy minister over at the Ministry of Defense has decided that she was going to hire a friend and give them an $89,000 job within the government, for which they were not qualified for because the only experience they had was in, I don't know, running the counter at a gym. And she said, "Oh, I was just trying to promote diversity by giving them a job." See, and that's where we have so many politicized bureaucrats within the public service, and this is known for decades. They're all pro-liberal. Now, of course, you have one here, once again, following the cue from her liberal masters. So the problem is, my dear, you see, when the politicians break the laws, you can't hold them accountable because they're protected by parliamentary protection. But you are not. You're a public servant. You have to account for everything, right? So if you go on a course somewhere and you spend more money than you're allowed to for your meals because, you know, you're only allowed so much, or you decide to book yourself a huge suite at the expense of the taxpayer instead of the shared bedroom you're supposed to have on course with everyone else, you know, no, you have to pay the difference. But if you're a politician, you don't have to follow those laws, right? You can spend all the money you want and no one will ever hold you accountable. It seems government after government. Strange, but what's going to happen to her? By mimicking them, obviously. So she will just get moved to another department and everyone will forget about this. This will get buried under the rug because there is a fire hose of chaos constantly being created in Canada by the Liberal government. Now, let's get on to the next post here. We'll cover up what's happening in Ireland. As you know, they have been protesting the higher raise. Well, they've been protesting a lot of things in Ireland, but the biggest problem is they have a far-left government who's doing the same thing to them as they're doing here in Canada, which is replacing the population with uncontrolled mass immigration. And at the same time, they're imposing all their net zero madness and all these high taxes because of the climate, don't you see? But they won't listen to the local people. And I don't think what they realize is that, well, Ireland has a history of people revolting and using violence when they feel oppressed. And right now, they're trying a peaceful method by saying, we're protesting peacefully. Don't mess with us, folks. And guess what? Well, they're going to start messing with them, aren't they? So that was some footage from the day before. And here we have the trucker protest in Ireland is huge. The government is now using the same tactics as the Canadian government did as to try and disparage them and make false claims that they are being violent and of course they had a nice big bonfire burning a huge, look at a stack of pallets. That's mass. I think that's the biggest bonfire I've seen since what they do out in the desert in the US every summer. North Ireland, a bonfire was held with an immigrant's boat and giant effigy of a Palestinian flag. Europeans are fed up. And you can see here, stop the boats, veterans before refugees. And yeah, they are literally bringing in people, setting them up in hotels, giving them all the money they can to make them live, most of them young men, right? And then doing nothing for their own populace. It's so blatant, just like they're doing here in Canada. Just like they are doing here in Canada. And of course, here we have this person here. This was before what they started doing today in the UK, right? And this is the kind of quits that the Irish have to deal with.
Well, there of course are going to be legal consequences. They mightn't arise today or tomorrow, but people have licenses to drive vehicles. Those licenses will be affected. In terms of insurance, any insurance coverage, I suspect, will be void as a result of the owner of the equipment deciding to voluntarily get involved in such illegal activity. So there will be legal consequences down the road. But what I'm here to do is to try to appeal to people to stop these protests. They need to recognise that they've made their point and now they're simply inflicting damage on Ireland and the Irish people. Well, there are
So obviously, they haven't made their point because you refuse to acknowledge their point that you are doing them up the rear side with your politics. And you're saying, yeah, okay, you made your point. Now, if you don't let us bowl over you and replace you, we're going to go after you next, right? And I've said it before. It couldn't get any traction before, obviously. Maybe this will get traction now. But during the COVIDity stupidity, when the freedom protest happened in Canada, the one tactical error they made was making everything about having the convoy show up to protest in Ottawa, when all they really needed to do was get every truck that they could to just pull over where they were. They didn't need to go to Ottawa. They just needed to pull over and basically seize the moving of goods within Canada. And then it would have cried uncle within a couple of weeks because all the stores would have gone empty. They have that much power. But now it's too late. It's too late to do that in Canada now because, well, the Liberals have made sure through their mass, unvetted mass immigration that now all those trucking companies have hired so many temporary foreign workers that would never pull over because they have no affiliation or attachment to this country or wanting to save it, which is why the government has repeatedly refused to do anything about all these truck drivers that shouldn't be driving trucks in Canada, even though the Bloc Québécois has repeatedly brought it up during question period. Why are you allowing this to happen? Well, this is why. Because they can't have that kind of control occurred by protesters in Canada. So they diluted the workforce that drives trucks in Canada that might side with protesters to actually seize the method of delivery in Canada, which would gain them complete control. That's all they really need to do there in Ireland as well, because we know what their next steps are going to be. Here you have some footage. These are the kind of plants that they're building. Ireland migrant plantation camps. While Irish farmers, hauliers, businesses are being crushed by insane new laws and crippling fuel duties, the government is quietly building mass camps across the country. Now, they're bringing these in on purpose to destroy the family farms, just like they're doing here in Canada. Because part of the Liberal mantra under Carney is to ensure that the government takes control over everything. And following Carney's past examples is that he will now start to sell off those bits of Canada like they've already done. They're already starting to sell off parts of Canada to other large corporations or other governments. And people keep bringing up, oh, yeah, the Conservatives sold off Canada. Yeah, that was a business. Not huge chunks of land. When they're not giving it away to the natives, that is. But as you can see, the Irish are getting peed off. Civilian rights breaking in a significant escalation. Every police officer in Ireland has been ordered to work for the next 3 days to crush the ongoing protests. Officers have been told to show up in protective gear. Please keep supporting the people of Ireland in our moment of need. And of course, here we have it is unconscionable that your government is now freezing the bank accounts of citizens who express support for the ongoing anti-government protests across Ireland, including my account. Shame on you. So they've already started to seize the bank accounts following this doofus's, following the Liberal example that we had here in Canada. Now, big escalation by the state of Whitegate Oil Refinery. This was yesterday. Protesters agreed to let 3 tankers in for essential services, but the Gardaí are trying to force their way in with 10 tankers. But the protesters would have none of it. Ezra Land over at Rebel News has gone over to cover the story locally. And because, of course, the local media there is not covering it at all, right? And have you seen any coverage on our mainstream media? Probably not. Then again, I don't really look too much at our mainstream media because they are controlled by government through UCJO, right? Quality Canadian Journal Organization, tax credits. You pay your media employees, every single media employee, including the boss, 85 grand or more. They can get up to just under 30 grand in tax credits from your tax dollars to fund them, right? As long, of course, as they keep carrying liberal buckets of water to splash onto the population and say, everything is good, people. The dumpster fire you're seeing is not a real one. We love the liberals. You love the liberals too. Right? So all these people that take those tax credits, every single one of them, the National Post, Toronto Red Star, the Globe and Pale, right? All those fake media outlets that take this money, making them government employees. I don't care if you say, but everybody's taking it. No, not everybody. If they had given it to every single media organization in Canada without questions, it wouldn't be an issue. But no, just like in typical liberal fashion, some people are always more equal than others. So they have appointed a liberal committee to decide who gets these credits. Right? So it's always friends of the liberals or people with a secret handshake to say nice things about the liberals and you'll keep getting the money. Now keep saying bad things about the opposition leader. Yeah, you need to pay more attention to the opposition leader and not pay any attention to the actual leader of Canada, right? Because if you do that, then people might actually know what the Prime Minister is doing to the country. So you keep distracting us by just paying attention to the opposition guy while not paying attention to what the actual Prime Minister is doing. Typical far-left media press that we are saddled with. So, of course, they have their own page set up if you want to find out the information, the latest information that they have. And this is the latest right now. Terrible scenes at the Whitegate oil refinery right now. Farmers and truckers are being penned in like cattle while the Irish Army has arrived on scene to remove their vehicles. This is a sad day for Ireland. It's going to be a much sadder day if the time of troubles start all over again because they wouldn't listen to their own people that they are actively trying to replace with mass immigration. Not going to go down well for those politicians. They have to live in that country. Or do they? Or do they? Or are they all just a bunch of Mark Carneys themselves who fill in their pockets with cash from the taxpayer, so as soon as they're done their little job, they'll abscond back out of the country and live somewhere else where they never have to answer all the abuse that they have done to their nation. Not looking good, folks. Not looking good at all. Let's listen to Truth Seeker.
Carney, the self-proclaimed outsider and the self-proclaimed best choice for the Liberal leader of Canada after Justin Trudeau resigns. It only took me 5 minutes to realize that this guy was more of an insider than the entire members list of the Bohemian Grove Secret Society. Yeah, the guy's been at Bilderberg meetings, like a true outsider, like you and me. We're outsiders. Of course, we're going to go to Bilderberg meetings. And if you're wondering why he's been filmed or had pictures taken with Ghislaine Maxwell. According to the Toronto Sun, it's because his wife's sister went to the same high school as Ghislaine Maxwell. Totally believable for someone who's gone to the Bilderberg meetings. Anyway, what Mark Carney is basically an economic grim reaper. He is BlackRock's trustee for bankruptcy. His entire job is to go into countries, absolutely economically destroy them, and then have investment banks buy out all of the resources and labor while taking away your freedoms and rights under the Green New Deal. That was literally his idea. So let me just show you some of the things I found about Mark Carney, the outsider that everybody talks about. In 2008 crisis in Canada, what Mark Carney did is he loaded us up with so much debt that the moment the economy turned, the working class in Canada is now 75% working class, paid for it through interest rates so high they crippled and broke every middle class family with a mortgage. And then he moved to England and did the exact same to the English. And his name there is actually Mark Carnage. Even the former Liberal Party president Stephen Ledrew says that Carney is a wickedly dangerous man hoping to curtail individual freedom in order to achieve his view of what the world needs. He makes the WEF, the World Economic Forum, look like libertarians. He's also BlackRock's bankruptcy trustee. Isn't that weird how he's such an outsider? Lol. He's also leading a campaign for a green digital cryptocurrency to replace the US dollar, because that's totally normal. He's such an outsider that he's basically a member of the Group of 30. I mean, you might as well just be a part of the Committee of 300, and also the World Economic Forum, and he's attended Bilderberg meetings. He also wrote, if some companies and industries fail to adapt to this new anti-carbon world, they will fail to exist. So he's basically telling you that you have no choice. Not really surprising considering he wrote a book called Values, Building a Better World for All, and where he says Western society is morally rotten and also requires rigid controls on personal freedoms. And I also came to find out that he's been advising Justin Trudeau in the background in 2020, and he is the reason why Canadians had their bank accounts frozen during the trucker protests. Let me show you. Mark Carney said this about the convoy. Those who are still helping to extend this occupation must be identified and punished to full force of the law. Drawing the line means choking off the money that financed this occupation. And he's not referring to financial organizations or companies disobeying his green rules, but the citizens who have the right to protest. Yeah. And what's also interesting is if you look into him, every job that he had, he was appointed to. There were multiple people in line for his job with a lot more experience than Mark Carney, and somehow he just got in. Because he's really good friends with people at Bilderberg groups and like other groups, you know, that kind of control everything in the world. So the guy is literally Justin Trudeau's handler. And because Justin Trudeau screwed up so much, he's now there to kind of finish Canada off. So if you guys really want to know who Mark Carney is, there you go. The outsider Mark Carney, aka the Grim Reaper for the economic destruction of Canada, and also the guy who's going to absolutely curtail and take away your freedoms in the name of the green environment initiatives.
Now, if you weren't aware, a court over in Alberta just ruled yesterday that the independence movement needs to take a back seat to something else regarding the natives. Yeah, we need to pause all your separatist rhetoric there for a sec. Because a native came up and said, we're not being talked to about the separatism. Yeah, so they're going to keep taking signatures as long as they can, regardless, right? Because apparently they said, oh, no, this is just a pause. It's not going to stop anything. It's just a pause. Yeah, okay. Any dirty trick in a book that they can do to try to keep people from regaining some control from these far-left fanatics is being curtailed by the people that they control, which is why, look at this, Mark Carney billed over $500,000 in catered food for his 6.5 trips around the planet using your tax dollars to fly around for a lot of deals they could have just done over the phone because they weren't really deals at all. They were just promissory notes to have another promissory note in the future. And then he comes back and goes, oh, we have a promise of more deals, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, he's not doing anything except feeding off your tax dollars. Imagine this. When a government fell because of his $16 glass of orange juice in the past, because of, they were entitled to their entitlements. And now you have this and the press barely blinks an eye. People are like, yeah, whatever. $500 million here, $500 million there. Who cares? $500,000 here, $500,000 there. That's like 50 hours of credit card payments, basically, to keep the credit card debtors at bay is what he spent on food. It's absolutely disgusting. They are pigs at the trough. And, of course, we warned you. We warned you the liberals are like this, but, oh, no, elbows, people. Oh, speaking of elbows, look at this. I cleaned up the audio massively because we couldn't hear the questions clearly. Imagine with a straight face lying to reporters, your constituents, all of Canada, and ending your BS with, this is good for me, too. Yes, let's listen to Gladue once again.
But you said before that you would that if MPs cross the floor, that they should run in a by-election. So when do you intend to resign your seat and run in a by-election or follow through in the polls?
Well, I also said that in order for that to happen, the Elections Act has to be changed. And the Elections Act has to be changed to make sure that people will have to either sit as, independents or call a by-election. That law has not been changed.
You seem to be saying your constituents voted for this, and the Liberals. The first person we talked to yesterday in Sarnia couldn't believe it. They called you a turncoat. They couldn't believe what you had done. And you're telling us that they want this. I just don't buy it.
Well, all I can say is that I've been listening to my constituents since last summer, and this is what my constituents are saying. This is what they want, and certainly it's going to be good for the riding. We're going to receive the support we need. It's going to be good for the country. I have experience to help build it, and it's good for me personally as well. Thank you.
Are you going to run again?
And it's good for me personally as well. Well, Northern Perspective, I think they put together a pretty good video on that, and it does call to question. You pretty well admitted you were bribed. What's going on here, Vladu? Just insane in the membrane. Now, of course, she goes, oh, well, there's nothing stopping her from stepping down and allowing a by-election to occur. You don't need a law for you to step down, you wanker. What a traitor. Now, how long do you think it'll be before there is a magic money dump truck coming up to Sarnia? Indeed. Now, this picture is so true, right? Let's bring this picture right up and look at this. This is pretty well the future under the Liberals. Right, massive amounts of spending to make themselves and their friends rich while ignoring the needs of the population. And this is exactly the kind of future that the Liberals would love Canada to have. And all these Canadians having to live on the streets, the ones that couldn't leave the country, while all their replacements that they brought into the country are probably living in the houses they used to live in. That is the future. Under Liberals, nothing but a boot stomping on your face forever. And I bring that up because, of course, there's this question here. Now, Matt Genest was doing a good job at the Liberal convention yesterday, taking a lot of questions or asking a lot of questions, not necessarily getting answers from every politician he could find. We're going to throw a few of these up. If you're not following him on X, please do so. He was doing really good work.
A question for you. As a Minister of Transport, my name is Max.
Hi, Max.
Hi.
Where are you from?
I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I'm just wondering.
What do you do in Winnipeg?
I'm a journalist, but most of all, I'm just wondering. How do we know that the Finance Minister Philippe Champagne really recused himself from the high-speed rail Alto?
Because he said he did, and because he's a man of integrity. And a man absolutely devoted to our country and its future.
With all due respect, I don't think saying I recuse myself actually recuses, like, did he really step aside?
Again, you can, these are solemn undertakings. We have the most stringent ethics guidelines in the world, and Mr. Champagne follows those very rigorously.
Okay.
There are no strict ethics guidelines in Canada. That is a bloody joke. No one is ever held accountable for any ethics or moral violations. None. Never. Not once. Can we have an example of just one Liberal being held accountable for an ethics violation? Anyone? Anyone? It's not even a real fine. There's no real fines for them. What is it? Like a couple $100? Given the amount of pay that they get? Yeah, sure, I could ethically make myself hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars by, using insider information. I'll pay the ethics violation, a couple $100. It's a laugh. Absolute laugh. And of course, with the over 500 individual types of shares and investments that Carney has that he lied about during the campaign not having, right? That only just over 100 are actually covered by his ethics screener, who doesn't actually screen anything unless the Prime Minister tells him to screen it. It's a bloody joke. And as for Champagne recusing himself, he's already been involved over 4 times in the progress of this project going through, from putting it in his own bloody budget. Excuse me while I pee all over this idea, because, a Liberal would be taking a leak on you, and you could be complaining, and they'd be just saying, why are you complaining about the rain? Vesper, once again, Bank of Canada violated the Bank of Canada Act, Section 18, illegally in 2021. From 2020 to 2021 by colluding and lending the Trudeau government 3 times the legal limit of 33% written into the act created by Parliament. Through digital money printing, they gave Trudeau $400 billion. Well, you want to wonder why our debt has exploded? Why we have more debt added by this government than all other prior governments combined? It's because they broke the law. And who's holding them accountable? Nobody. Nobody. And most Canadians don't even know this happened because the mainstream media that the Liberals control did not report this. Let's watch the video. They figure, well, it's fair game. It's available in a Hansard. Anybody can watch the videos online. We don't have to fucking report it.
I stumbled on a section of the Bank of Canada Act, Section 18, subsection J, only hours before I was originally planning to make this point of privilege. And having read that section and looked at the numbers, I came to the conclusion that there very well might be a breach of law involved in what the bank and the government have colluded to do. Allow me to read the section in question. Section 18, the bank may, J, make loans to the Government of Canada or the government of any province, but such loans outstanding of at any one time shall not, in the case of the Government of Canada, exceed 1/3 of the estimated revenue of the Government of Canada in a fiscal year. I turn your attention, Mr. Speaker, to Table A14, Summary Statement of Transactions, Budget 2021. Projected revenues, $355.1 billion. So to respect Section 18J of the Bank of Canada Act, which limits the bank's ability to lend money to the government to no more than 1/3 of projected budgetary revenues, the bank would be effectively capped in its loans to the government at $118 billion. $118 billion being 1/3 of the $355 billion of projected revenues. In fact, the Bank of Canada balance sheet shows that it now holds $415 billion, almost $300 billion more than the legal cap provided in the Act. The Bank of Canada has breached limits that Parliament has imposed on its ability to lend money to the government. Now, these limits do not exist without reason. There is a reason why Parliament chose deliberately to write a section into the Bank of Canada Act limiting the amount of debt the bank could buy. Parliament foresaw that future governments might try to use the printing presses over at the bank in order to pay for spending that it could not raise through the more normal process of tax.
Exactly. Right? But the Liberals don't care about the law. They don't care about the law. They continually break the law and nobody holds them accountable. That's why we're in this pickle. Imagine that. So that was during the COVID stupidity. And we told everyone then, this is nothing but a massive scam to do a massive wealth transfer from the Treasury to Big Pharma. And along the way, all the politicians and their friends are going to be pocketing a bunch of money. And that is exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. Oh, so but what the Canadians do? Oh, Trump is bad. Let's bring these same abusers back in. And here we are, ready to get exposed to a majority government by these criminals who don't care about human life whatsoever. One of the first things that Justin Trudeau did when he came to power was to change the law to make it legal to sodomize teens. Yes, exactly. Because of what's been in the news over the past 24 hours. Now, I covered this story briefly on Thursday when it was just breaking then regarding some accusations by Mr. Smith regarding whether or not Justin Trudeau was watching children having activities on a phone that should be done by adults instead, and he was watching it, and the RCMP were aware of it, and he wanted the Toronto Star to put out the story, and they said they would, then they decided not to. Maybe, I don't know, maybe because of this. I have no idea whether or not it's because of that, but just to say that obviously he felt it strongly enough to, sue sue the Toronto Star for not printing the story. Now, whether or not it holds any grounds, and Viva Frey actually went over his his legal venture, Mr. Smith's legal venture, and he saw the same thing that I saw last Thursday, which is it seems to be on hearsay. There's no actual evidence. However, you put it out there, it's starting to get a lot of a lot of traction. Let's just say whether it's true or not. And of course, I can't say this is bad because there's so many other bad things that these liberals have done. Even if this is incorrect dirt being thrown at them, their involvement with so many criminals kind of makes that slightly irrelevant in its sense. But anyway, liberals to revamp the discriminatory age law for anal intercourse. The Liberal government is repealing a law that makes it legal to have anal sex under the age of 18. So why would liberals do that? Why would anyone think it's a good idea to make laws to have sex with children? But that's what the liberals did, which explains a lot of what has happened over the last 24 hours. Here we have Mark Carney poses with Respond head Hong Wai, also known as Winnie Liao. Liao held a lavish cash for access fundraisers with Chinese Communist Party members with Trudeau in 2016. One of her triplets, Yun Lucy Lee, was arrested for murdering her business partner. Perfect Carney supporters. And of course, so, oh my God, every liberal and supporter is turning out to be perverted, immoral, twisted, pedophilic, obsessed with children's sexuality, murderers, rapists, extortionists. It's true. I hope more and more Canadians realize this before they finish voting on Monday in these two ridings in Toronto and realize that, well, this is not a good man. Now, Andy Lee has more information here on Winnie. She hosted fundraisers for Justin Trudeau and with CCP agents. Her daughter and her daughter's gangster boyfriend are convicted killers. She was sanctioned by Law Society in 2015. Yes, she was sanctioned for fraudulently providing something that she did not have, which was basically, certification from the University of York. Didn't have it, lied about it. So she got sanctioned and given a fine. She paid $1 million when her kids broke bail. That's the kids with the gangster boyfriend who murdered somebody. And a little more information down here. We go. She, with Winnie Lau, is violating a ban by chairing Respond International Group under an Insurance Council of BC order, barring her from any controlling or senior role in insurance until May 2029 for forging York University documents. So she's actively violating a ban. And these are the people that Mark Carney associates with, because that's exactly the kind of people the liberals are. They have no compunctions whatsoever about hanging out with mass murderers like the Chinese communists, right? By letting them bring in a bunch of EVs. Oh no, there's labor, there's forced labor on the planet globally, but they won't say about forced labor in China because that would upset their Chinese communist masters. They associate with perverts. They also apparently associate with convicted child sex offenders this person here was organizing Carney's candidate's GTA campaign. Yeah, this person here, sex offender. And that's Begum's campaign. Yeah, the NDP floor crosser. No, sorry, not floor crosser, but they brought her in from the NDP. Of course, the liberals have no ethics or morals. They'll just bring anybody into their tent as long as they can control. So they can control everything. They don't care. They don't care who they associate themselves with, right? So who is this guy? This guy here, sex offender working as principal of private tutoring programs. So this is a story from 2015 where he admitted to what he was doing and was found guilty. And, of course, this was broken by Sam Cooper. Perfect timing, Sam. Convicted child sex offender organizing Carney's candidates GTA campaign met Prime Minister and MPs. Yusuf Ali Talukder, convicted in 2010 of sexually touching a child student, lobbied Carney on making Liberal candidate Dolly Begum a cabinet minister at an event featured on CBC News. There you go. These are the people in your neighborhood, in your Liberal neighborhood. Now, once again, Liberals have failed victims. Let's listen to Frank Caputo.
MP Frank Caputo from Kamloops, Thompson-Nicola. We recently voted on a private member's bill from Rachel Thomas. And what this bill would have done was made sex offenses consecutive with a unique victim. There's actually a provision in the criminal code right now that says if you offend against one child, every other sentence has to be consecutive for a unique victim. In other words, if you have 3 victims, you will be getting 3 consecutive sentences. Rachel put forward a bill, and I seconded that bill, that would say it's the same for offending against an adult. We want to get away from this mentality of cheaper by the dozen, and to be clear that when you offend against one person, you should serve a sentence to reflect the fact that that victim is serving a psychological life sentence. The Liberals yesterday voted against this. Received a message from a victim. This was a message that was very heartfelt, expressing the disappointment. I don't know how the Liberals voted against this. They said they thought it was unconstitutional. If that's the case, well then why is the other provision constitutional? But more concretely, why aren't they protecting, why aren't they speaking for the people who are the voiceless, the nameless, the faceless? These are the people who go unrecognized in our society. I was proud to vote for Rachel's private members bill. I just can't see why the Liberals didn't. Shameful.
So it's pretty simple. Know them by what they do. And the fact that they voted against this pretty well intimates that every single Liberal politician is a probable sex offender themselves. I'm just saying, if you don't like laws that would actually help victims of sexual offenses, then are you planning sexual offenses in the future? Is that why you don't want these laws, Liberals? Like, why don't you support the victims? Oh, because you support the criminals that you're bringing into Canada to cause the chaos, to distract everyone from your ongoing theft of the Treasury. Bruce McGonigal writes, the Liberals are pitching the idea of charging Canadian youth $500,000 if they want to leave Canada to move to the USA. So, when I joined the military in 1984, Canada was in a Cold War with the Soviet Union, along with all the other NATO allies. In 1989, in September, I had recently joined the Royal Canadian Air Force, had remustered into my new trade as airframe technician. And during my training at 8-wing Borden, 16-wing Borden, at the Canadian Forces School of Aerospace Technology and Engineering, a wall came down in Berlin. Yes, I remember it well. September 1989, the wall came down, and I said to myself, damn it, I will never get a posting to Germany now. Because back then, Canada had 3 bases in Germany that we had postings to. We had over 100,000 people in the Canadian Forces back then. We operated bases there. And units, flying units as well. Yeah. Now, of course, we have about, I think, 3 or 4 positions left that we operate in regards to over in Europe, aside from the new missions that have started in Latvia. But in regards to that, all we had was a few positions to work on the AWACS. That's right. So I remember it well. And we're like, finally, the Soviet Union is crumbling. And the wall came down and people could finally leave. And we look at North Korea, right? That little area where people can't leave their country either. And now here you have the Liberals acting like a bunch of communists. Oh, no, if you want to get out of Canada, you got to pay. You got to pay more to get out. Now, it's a couple of days ago, I said, I was wondering, back when your portion of the debt was like only $14,000, now it's rapidly increasing up to $60,000. Every single Canadian Every single child, man, woman, elderly person, every single Canadian over 56, well, been up on 60 grand, is their portion of the debt that these clowns have accumulated over the past 11 years. More debt than all other prior governments combined. They're saying, oh no, if you want to leave, you got to pay. You got to pay us more money if you want to leave. Like leaving a gag, isn't it? These people are the most evil creatures on the planet. Which is perfect for this little video to be played.
Liberal. I love communist China. The United States is our new enemy. Free speech is dangerous and needs to be regulated too. Just like China, Canada needs the government telling me what I can see and what I can post on social media. Xi Jinping cares about my well-being, just like Mark Carney does. The Chinese government running their own police stations in Canada is actually a good thing. So is China interfering in Canadian elections to help the Liberals. We should only be worried about Donald Trump, never China. What could go wrong with flooding Canada with Chinese cars that spy on us? We need Chinese fentanyl in our country. Only the Orange Man is bad. May the Liberal government and their Chinese masters reign over Canada for 1,000 years. I'm a Canadian Liberal.
This message brought to you by your Chinese Communist masters. Now, of course, another question here by Zachary McRae when he was asking Liberal MP Steve McKinnon, explain why he needs all your guns. You will be appalled.
Can I ask you about the gun grab? What do you think of it? The 2 million legally purchased firearms that they're trying to take from Canadians who bought them in good faith. What do you feel about it? Canadians who purchased them legally, and now they're scared by the fact that over 2 million guns are now considered weapons of war. On all 2 million of them? Do you think they should all be confiscated?
Legal gun owners, we know a lot of people operate firearms very safely, and we want to be very respectful of them while also making sure that assault-style weapons are taken off.
And sorry, one last question, my apologies. About the 90% of gun crimes are by illegally owned firearms. So do you really think that this gun grab is going to help gun safety when over 90% of gun crime is done by illegal firearms?
I think all of our crime policies taken together, including sensible gun measures, are going to be measures that are going to be very effective in reducing crime.
Thank you for your time.
So there you have it. All of our crime policies taken together. That's their answer. That's why we're going after your guns, because of all of our crime policies taken together. Now, if you look at all their crime policies taken together, that includes pretty well establishing an authoritarian state to censor Canadians who say anything about the government that makes them look bad. And the only way to ensure that they can continue to abuse everyone is to ensure that they confiscate all the guns just in case Canadians get it into their heads that they might have an existential threat from the government trying to, well, I don't know, knock them off one at a time and replace them by uncontrolled mass immigration. I'm just saying this, knock them off one at a time because, well, they did inject them with a fraudulent COVID-19 vaccine that has been declared to have been known to be injurious and deadly by both Health Canada and several other health agencies around the world. Now, we all know that anyone who took it is going to die earlier than they wouldn't have if they'd not taken it. It's just a fact. You injected something in your body that is a poison. No getting around it, folks. It was a poison. It was a toxic thing. But, they will never admit to that. What is a fact is that they have uncontrolled mass immigration coming in with a temporary foreign worker program established to replace every single worker. So they're taking away your ability to own and have any kind of living in Canada. Over 1 million Canadians have probably fled Canada now since 2015. I mean, every year, the number seems to keep doubling, or the amount of people that keep leaving the country and taking their wealth with them. So in that effect, anyone who can provide a job is taking their money and leaving. So in that sense, they are also removing your ability to find any kind of work, unless, of course, it's at the behest of the government. And then, of course, they want to bring in these laws, and they're going to be able to do it. Once they get the majority, it's going to be boot to the face, nonstop, booting you in the face forever, like that horrible aspect of history. Tamara Litch writes, under 7 years for murder. That's right. The Crown prosecutor in our case is appealing our sentences and wants Chris and I jailed for 7 to 8 years for mischief, our involvement in the most peaceful, polite protest in Canadian history. But meanwhile, an Indigenous BC man who shot his sleeping wife in the head after a 17-hour drinking binge has been sentenced to under 7 years for her death. Canada has a two-tier justice system. This cannot carry on for much longer because Canadians have had enough of being treated like second-class citizens by a National Socialist Party known as the Liberals, who are now in bed with mass-murdering Chinese communists. That's right. Ontario man George Catterberg is in court challenging the province after being ordered to remove a billboard criticizing politicians' handling of COVID. Lawyers funded by the Justice Centre argue the government changed its rules to restrict political speech, raising serious concerns about freedom of expression. A decision has not yet been released. Support cases like this and defend fundamental freedoms. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. This is insane. This is exactly the kind of totalitarian, authoritarian bullshit that happens in countries before everything goes sideways or pear-shaped. And the only thing at this point that can stop it in those nations before it gets too bad are elections to get the right people in. But if you keep electing the wrong people in who keep enforcing these kind of rules, guess what? You're only going to be left with one choice to get control back. And it's not going to be through peaceful methods. Because if they're taking away all your freedoms and ability to discuss things politically, that is oppression. And that's exactly what they're doing. The fact that you can't put out there the information about other politicians, what they've done, because it might offend those politicians, you've lost your freedom. Lost your freedom. And we have a little story about that ahead as well, because it's already happening in other so-called democratic nations. Bridget Fertig writes, the documents Pfizer tried to hide for 75 years will make your blood boil. 270 pregnant women got vaccinated during the Pfizer study. 234 of those pregnancy records completely vanished. Oh! It's a cover-up. Of the 36 women they actually tracked, over 80% lost their babies, and Pfizer knew it. They knew they were going to kill human beings with their injection. But they were given a pass. Oh, and the Canadian government says, well, we know it's being rushed, so we're going to have to give you protection because we know some people will probably die, probably get hurt. But we want to protect you, right? Because we have to do it. It feels good. It feels good that we have to do something. Yeah, they did something all right. Pfizer and their FDA pals wanted these documents sealed until 2096 because Big Pharma and their cronies at the FDA, CDC, NIH knew the truth before day one. They knew pregnant women were at risk. They knew babies were dying. They pushed it anyway because there's too much money at stake. The same agencies that told us it was safe and effective were the same ones hiding all the data, providing otherwise. Crimes against humanity. These are the liberals in your neighborhood. In your neighborhood. In your neighborhood. Well, not only are we seeing an immense amount of younger diagnosed cancer patients, but I'm losing friends, other medics, to rapid terminal cancer. What they all have in common is beyond obvious at this point. God bless. I know. My own uncle, diagnosed with liver cancer, bit of a teetotaler, back in December. And then he met his end within less than a couple of months. That fast. Of course, he had an appointment, couldn't get an appointment soon enough to actually see a cancer specialist. Not that it would help them, because he took the jab. My daughter was a cardio tech. She was mandated by her employer, AHS, to get her shots to keep her job. 17 months after receiving her second Pfizer shot, she was diagnosed with an aggressive rare cancer, and 6 weeks later, she was gone. She was 24 years old, had cancer in one lung, and she never smoked. Healthy, young, vibrant, no comorbidities, and cancer that doctors said they've never seen before, especially in someone so young. I saw many young people on the cancer ward. And guess what? All those foreigners, all those migrants that the Liberals brought into Canada, especially during the COVID stupidity and all these mandates that were going on, mandating people to get it to keep their jobs, all those migrants they brought in that they used to replace all those jobs with, not a single one needed to get the jab. Yeah, baby. Imagine that. How is that not overt population replacement? Give everyone a jab that ends them sooner than what they would, and then bring in a population to replace them. Oh, what about all the people that don't take the jab? Oh, don't worry. There'll be so few of them. They'll be inundated by all the replacements. And if any of them are smart enough, they'll leave the country with their wealth before, we clamp down with authoritarian rule and make them our slaves forever. Shocker, out of Canada, writes Viva Frey. I think the clerk working the Government of Canada's new jab impact program may have accidentally let slip more than she intended with respect to the previous company that was governing the jab injury claims. So here is a recording of a call by the father of Sean Hartman. You people don't know what that story is about. I suggest you look it up. And let's listen to this story here. And of course, John wanted to play hockey, and they wouldn't let him play hockey unless he took the jab. And his father said, don't take it. It's not good for you. It's not worth it. But Sean's parents were divorced. So when he went to stay with his mother, he didn't tell anyone, and he went and got the jab so he could play hockey. And he died.
So what I would suggest you, okay, and I'm going to guide you.
I'm sorry. I have to also say, Sean's dad went to court, and the courts refused to acknowledge the vaccine injury as well. Said they had no duty of care. They forced people to take it to participate in society, but they had no duty of care. This is not done yet in Canada. These crimes against humanity will continue to be brought up until those who caused all the misery, the death, and the injuries answer for their crimes. Until they throw me in jail, I'm not going to stop talking about it.
To the new portal since it's the federal government, okay? And I would advise you to reapply.
Reapply?
Reapply, yes.
Why?
And it's
So
going
they
to be
can-
taken care right away.
Hello? So they can deny it like they did the first time and then make me appeal again? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's a total new, like, before it was Auxero, okay? Yeah. The federal, since last week, took it back because there was a lot of things going on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Because, well, I can't say what I found there, but anyway, there's a lot of things going on. So that's why they took it back and they did all, like, the procedures back and as it goes, okay? And they have their own evaluator that's going to evaluate the case, like it's real doctors that's going to evaluate the case, okay? And it's real health agency agents case that's going to take your case. So that's how it works now, okay, as of last week. So what we've been told, okay, like it's if you already had applied with Xerio, just never mind that, apply and do a freshly application over the portal that the federal has for the portal application. Because there's going to be all kinds of questions, and at the end, it's going to ask you, are you applying for somebody else? So that way you're going to say yes, because you're applying for your son that's deaf.
Imagine that, eh? Imagine having to go through all that again. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Right, let's get to the next story here now. Max Janess, some more of his coverage from the Liberal Convention. Now here he is asking, let's pause this here. There we go. Now, he asked a former Liberal immigration minister, Ahmed Hussein, about helping implement mass migration. Yeah, watch what happens.
The immigration minister, when mass immigration started, implement and launch more mass migration. Minister, this is illegal. You are jaywalking, Minister. Minister, you are jaywalking. What the hell? What a retard. He literally jaywalked to get away from me. Minister, you were the immigration.
Wow. So that's the kind of people they are. Most of them are like that. There are a few ones that are, decent politicians who probably adhere to the old concept of what an actual liberal is, not whatever these people are. And of course, Ahmed Hussein, not born in Canada, right? Doesn't have the same ethics, values, or morals that we Canadians grew up with, which makes him a perfect liberal. Now, everyone's had enough with uncontrolled mass immigration, and it's starting to happen all around the planet, especially in all the Western nations that have followed the same far-left mass replacement ideology that they were all part of, right? They're all part of the same mass COVID-19 scam, right? Now they're all part of the same mass uncontrolled immigration scam. They're all part of the same global climate green scam to enrich themselves and their friends. They're all doing this on purpose to destroy all these Western nations from within so that they can sell it off and make a bunch of money. Now, here it's obviously, you've got this guy hanging out in this train here. He's got his trousers down around his ankles, flagelling his flagella all over the place, right? And people are like, dude, stop. Put your fucking pants on. No. Well, so then they have enough.
Yo, you need to get off the fucking train, bro. Fuck off! You need to get off. Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off! What do you mean fuck off? Fuck off! You need to get off the fucking train, mate. There's fucking kids about, man. Right, go, let's go. What the fuck, man? Get off the fucking train, bro. Put up your trousers. Put up your trousers. Put up your fucking trousers, mate. No. Go. Give my bag. Mate, you hear me? What bag? Dirty fucking cunt.
So that was looks like a civilian arrest of a criminal walking around exposing himself to children. They had enough. Here we have, it's absolutely appalling, posts Lee Harris. A vile bunch of far-left pro-Palestinian nutjobs spotted senior military personnel walking into the Ministry of Defense building in London, and then they tried to run at them. Police are there, and the MOD has now locked the doors. This is what happens when you allow a bunch of people into your country that hate you. So this is what's happening in the UK. Same thing's happening in Canada. And if it's not happening now, it will be happening very, very soon. In fact, if you watch any of the Rebel News aspects, you can see David Menzies. He's been interviewing people that are blatantly anti-Canadian, blatantly exposing how they love the violence and they love to end the lives of other people that disagree with them. And are the police doing everything? And how did these people get into the country in the first place? Oh, yes, of course, liberals. Now, there's this video here, and I'm not going to play it because it's far too disturbing. Warning, graphic: Christian men and children are brutally beaten to death with clubs by Islamic extremists in Nigeria. Now, according to Mark Carney, these are Canadian values. I suffer PTSD myself, and when I see certain things, I can't watch certain things anymore. I'll find comfort in rewatching some old comfortable things now. Some certain things, if there's an unknown aspect of probable violence happening, I just won't watch it. I have to prepare myself before I see anything this disturbing, because it's too upsetting. It really is. These humans were being put to death like animals in an abattoir by Islamic extremists who are just following their ideology to its very natural core, right? Which says you have 3 chances. I tell you once, you have to convert. Okay, I tell you twice, you have to convert. I tell you 3 times, you have to convert. And if you don't convert by the 3rd time, they do this. And of course, this is the end point. People will say, oh, no, this is extremism. Okay, fine. If you want to call it Islamic extremism, fine. But what is Christian extremism? Not this. Christian extremism is too much love, too much caring, too much love of life, right? That's Christian extremism. This is Islamic extremism? Or is it just adhering to the core ideology of the Sunnis or the Shias and all their branching aspects, but obviously not the Ahmadiyya, because they have given up violence. One of the 3 pillars of jihad. Or is it 5 pillars? Regardless, they have given up violence, the Ahmadiyyas. But obviously these ones have not. Now, Leviathan writes, Amar al-Sabiya is a Sabayi, hard to pronounce some of these names at times, is a senior consultant with Ontario Safety, led by Ontario Solicitor General Team Kersner. He was previously with Ontario Transport as a branch office administrator. Amar al-Sabayi uses swastikas to compare Israelis and Jews to Nazis while calling Jewish women whores online using the Hebrew word sharmuta. Now, mind you, sharmuta is not actually a Hebrew word. It is an Arabic word, actually, for whore. And actually, I had a post here. Is it there? Right. It's known as a highly offensive derogatory Arabic term for a woman, directly translating to whore or prostitute. Right? So anyways, Amar al-Sabi also used the Jewish Star of David to describe Jews as parasites, evil, pedophiles, organ thieves, child killers, rapists, human traffickers, and terrorists who lie, kill, cheat, rape, steal, and crime. Anyways, it goes on and on like that, but that's the fellow right here, right? And there's plenty of pictures. And he's in the government, right? He's working in the government. And they know about this. So why does he get a pass? Why does he get a pass? Maybe it's because of this 2-tier justice system we have in Canada. The Muslim community of GTA is hosting a vigil for Ayatollah Khamenei on April 12th in front of the Superior Court of Justice. Oh, that would be tomorrow on Sunday. Oh, isn't that nice, eh? Church Sunday, holding a protest in support of Ayatollah Khamenei. How many people did he hang from cranes for violating his concept of Sharia law? And that's what they're going to be celebrating. They're going to be celebrating a mass murderer. Outstanding. It's always nice to see Islamists coming together to pay tribute to their dictators. Isn't it? Isn't it? Right? Well, this is fucked, writes Paul Manning. The ringleader of the $22 million Toronto Pearson gold heist has been sentenced to only 4 years in prison. Yeah, look at that, 4 years in prison. He could be out in 18 months. But meanwhile, the Mayor Lynch, right, she's got to go to jail for 8 years for flying a Canada flag and saying, stop abusing us with fraudulent injection requirements. Two-tier justice system in Canada. Basil the Great writes, millions are marching. Now, if you weren't aware, and I've covered this earlier on the show in previous shows, is that Spain has decided that it's going to open its borders and allow anybody to come in, especially all you Islamics from Africa. Come on over. Yeah, it's a far-left government, again, trying to replace its population with this uncontrolled mass migration. And man, are they just coming in non-stop. Now, here's a post. It says Brampton. I don't know if this is Brampton or not. It could be anywhere in English-speaking Western democracies. But this is what happens when you allow people into the country that don't share the same ethics, morals, and values of your country. Canada, like every other Western nation, does not have magic dirt that as soon as somebody comes here and steps on it with their feet, they are automatically imbued with Western civilization values, ethics, and morals. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You know what they do? They want to get somewhere, they push anywhere else out of the way because that's the way they were brought up. They have no respect for our cultures and values. This bus driver had enough.
What are you doing, man? What are you doing? This is taking too long, man. I'm going to be late for work. Listen, let me explain something to you. This is real life. So whatever you listen to me. You're not getting in here because I'm the bus driver, right? Let me tell you something. Do your job right. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. Your job is to take us from I didn't ask you that. Look at her. Look at her. She's crying. Why are you being so mean? What if that was your mother and I did that? What if I did that to your mother? Now what? What if I pushed your mother like that? Would you like that shit? Well, I don't have a mother. So. All right, how about your grandmother? You don't have a grandmother either? You have a sister? All right, how about your sister? I push your sister. What's the difference? You don't talk. I wonder why. You don't apologize, you're not on the bus. Your choice. You either apologize or you can walk. It's okay. No, it's not okay, ma'am. Today's okay. You can either apologize or you can walk. Two things. Apologize, walk. What do you want to do? Apologize for what, dude? For pushing her. I didn't push.
Now, from the accent, it sounded a bit like that was in Boston. Can't really say. But hey, tell me you haven't seen this kind of behavior here in Canada by people who don't understand the concept of queuing. Right? Queuing up in line to have your turn is a foreign concept, especially to people from Asia. Carney Files. Carney campaigned on 380,000 migrants for 2026. Yeah. Now, because we don't have enough immigrants already in the country that we can't find jobs for them, let alone ourselves, or give housing to. So yeah, just keep bringing them in, you clowns. The actual number, well, it's broken down here, but apparently it's not 380,000. That's actually more like 765,000. Yeah, that's right. That's right. In 1 year. And they will flood the job market and laugh in your face. In your face, Canadians. They don't give a fuck about you. Not at all. They only care about your replacements coming in. Baby, and using your tax dollars to get it done. And of course, the media will just say, this is great. Look how bad and evil Pierre Poilievre is. Oh yeah, let's look at that. Let's not look at what the Liberals are doing. Meanwhile, what happens when you allow uncontrolled mass immigration into your country for decades? Well, you get Sweden. That's what happens. Sweden is and has and will continue to be the rape capital of Europe. Sweden Muslim classmates gang rape 14-year-old girl in school, remain enrolled because rapists are victims too, says principal. Suicidal empathy, I believe is what it's called, right? Stockholm syndrome. to the point where you can't differentiate between criminals and normal people because of your far left ideology. These people deserve a discount from aid. They're already suicidal, so why not just push them over the edge? Oh, another one by Max Genest. I asked Liberal Ottawa MP Yasir Naqvi why millions of Canadians can't afford a home. Obviously, and we know why we can't. Why most Canadians can't? Because of the uncontrolled mass immigration that just destroyed the housing market that the Liberals caused.
There are millions of young Canadians who cannot afford a home.
Fantastic day. Thank you very much.
No? There's no comment on millions of Canadians not being able to afford a home? What about the youth of this country, no? No? Wow. Amazing.
Have a good day. Have a good day. Blah, blah, blah. You're just a peon. You're just a plebe. You listen to me. Another guy that wasn't born in this country. Treating Canadians with disrespect. Melissa says, for your information, Melanie Jolie's brother is the CEO of Intellicom's Dragonfly delivery company, which is backed by La Caisse, partnered with Brookfield, and received loans from the BDC. But also, Intellicom is a subcontract to True Canada Post, a Crown corporation. So, again, more connections of Liberals, in this case, a minister, Minister Jolie, with connections in her family, taken advantage of insider enrichment for your tax dollars. Always. It's like that with all the Liberals. Every time they are in power. Every single time they are in power. This is what they do. Now, Mocha Brzurgan has another outstanding story. I suppose you go down and watch it. BC parents guard school amid youth's alleged kill list. We don't want another Tumbler Ridge. An underreported story is unfolding in Falkland, BC, where parents are standing watch over their elementary school. Children are spending recess indoors. Bus locations are changing. Tournaments are being canceled. And some parents are not sending their children to school at all, as a youth behind an alleged kill list has been walking around the school in the mornings. Yeah, and because of its isolated area in the Falklands, I guess apparently the RCMP can't do anything about this kid. So now the whole community has to try to protect itself against this one person because, again, the Liberals won't do their work, won't do their job, to the point where people actually want to join the RCMP, but no, it's 3,400 personnel shortfall. That was from last year. That's a shortfall from this year. Of people not joining the RCMP because, well, they probably have these affirmative action quotas to be met. So that's going to put out a whole bunch of other people who actually want to join, that actually have merit to join. But the government can't have those, right? Because they're not the right skin color, they're not the right gender, they're not the right hair color. Who knows? They make up a bunch of excuses because for them it is not about merit. It's about meeting quotas. On top of the fact that most people have realized that working for people who have no respect for human life, morals, or ethics is probably not somebody you should be risking your lives for. Which is why they probably can't get anybody to join their ranks, to be their own bully boys. Which is why they're having probably so many foreigners who were not born in this country to join those ranks, so that when they are in that position and they are dispatched to abuse Canadians, they will do so with no problems whatsoever because they have no connection with the people they are abusing because they weren't born in this country. So they don't care about other fellow Canadians. They only care about their job and the money being paid for by their boss. And they come from a culture where, you know, using violence to get your way is normal. And now you gave them a badge. Isn't that outstanding? Yeah. That's what's going to happen there. But meanwhile, I suggest you go and watch this story by Media Brzurgan because he, again, has done an awesome job here. And next story here. Bell Civitas, the government of Canada, and the provincial health bureaucracies have decided that it's illegal for doctors to purchase MRI machines to serve the people on years-long waiting lists. Reason? Well, the government first has to study the issue to ascertain whether more MRI machines are needed. That's the far left way. Always. Well, I believe you, but we're going to have to do a study first. And then after they do the study, they go, well, we'll probably have to do a study the study to ensure that we got the study right. Just like they did with the flight attendants. That's right, because the flight attendants, they're not getting paid until the brakes come off the wheels. Yeah, so all that work you see the flight attendants doing when you get on the plane before the plane actually moves away from the terminal, free. They're working for free. And the attendants would like to get paid for that. Would have liked to have gotten paid for that for years now. But what did the Liberals do? Well, they initiated a probe. Yeah, they initiated a probe. They studied it for 6 months. And at the end of the probe, they decided to study the probe for another 6 months. You can't make this shit up. Because that's how the Liberals are. I believe we only have a couple of stories left. Here's the last one here. Now, this was odd. Since 9/11, I guess there's a lot of people now that are adults that weren't even born when 9/11 happened. Amazing. I remember where I was at the time when 9/11 occurred. I was at my unit, 427 Squadron up in Petawawa. It was my second posting there, as a matter of fact. And I just walked from my office to the canteen, which is on the far side of the hangar. Far side of the building, I should say. So I had to walk out, go through one hangar, go into the canteen. I grab myself a coffee. I go up to the counter to pay. And the person behind the counter is like not even paying attention to me. They're like looking over across the room. And so I look over across the room and there's a TV up in the corner. Of course, it's the canteen. And there's a flight engineer there. And he's also looking up at the TV. And I'm watching and one of the twin towers is on fire. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And as I'm watching, a second plane flies into the other tower. Now, of course, since then, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories that have popped up, a lot of questions, because looking at the amount of destruction and all the towers that went down, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. Now, apparently, there's this new footage that has come out. So we'll watch that.
Explosion. He was in the lobby and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What was it like? What was it like?
Horrible. Horrible. The whole building just collapsed on us inside the lobby.
Was that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was the...
Yeah, definitely secondary explosion. But we was inside waiting to go upstairs. And on our way upstairs, the whole fucking thing blew. And we just collapsed on everybody inside the lobby.
Similar to the first tower coming down, secondary?
I don't know about the first one, but I know the second one was terrible. Then there was a third one too after that one. Yes. Everybody was inside the building waiting to go upstairs, and they just let loose. Everything just let loose inside the building.
So what you told me is that there was a plane or whatever hit the building, and then the secondary explosion.
It was like 3 explosions after that. We came in after the fire. We came when the fire was going on already. We was in the staging area inside the building, waiting to go upstairs. And they exploded. The whole lobby collapsed on the lobby inside.
Just AM after that?
Just man, everybody trying to make their way out.
Trying to help all the brothers get out.
A lot of people trapped inside.
I was sitting in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, close to Brooklyn. We watched the first explosion. As we watched the building, we saw a black, very large airplane fly right into the second building. It came out of the south, right in front of our eyes. Just, it was so surreal, like a movie set. Second and third explosions also, right? We were in the building for the third one, and it collapsed. I was on this drive here for the other one.
People don't understand. There may be more. Any one of these fucking buildings could blow up. This ain't done yet.
This is on top of this. That could be no worse than this. Could be nothing no more worse than this. You're in the building trying to help people, and it's exploding on the inside the building. So.
Well, will we ever know the truth? Who knows? Now, I believe, is this one? Yes. Okay. The government of Canada and the provincial health bureaucracies have decided that it's illegal for doctors to purchase MRI machines to serve the people on years-long wait lists. The reason? Because they have to study that issue. So the central control is what usually happens in communism. And like I said, they had to study the issue with flight attendants, and they will continue to use this aspect. Oh, I think we need to study the problem because they created the problem. We know what the bloody problem is. They don't need to study anything anymore. They will continue to not do anything to protect or support Canadians. They will continue to bring in people to replace Canadians. They will continue to rob the treasury to enrich themselves. They will continue to use the media to control the minds of all the albozos out there who can't think for themselves. And come Monday, there are probably going to be enough Canadians who are not going to know about all these things we've talked about on this show, and they're probably going to vote the Liberals back into a majority, at which point we're fucked. I'm going to join you tomorrow morning at Second Breakfast at 9 a.m., where we will be just as cheery with some new information. Please join us then. We'll see you then. Thanks all for coming out. I really appreciate you watchers, especially if you watch to the very end. So many people, if they're actually watching a video all the way to the end like this, at this long, kudos to you. Thank you so much for coming out. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.